This episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast is brought to you by Sorry Clementine Clothing, located at 366 South 500 East, number 104, in beautiful downtown Salt Lake City.
Hey, welcome back to the I Am Salt Lake podcast, episode 29. I am your host, Chris Hollifield. I am your guide to continue through this journey as I introduce you to individuals, professionals, artists, everyday people doing really cool stuff here in beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah. Like I said, this is episode 29, so thank you very much for joining us. If this is your first time, you know where to find us. IamSaltLake.com. That's going to connect you with us in every previous episode of the podcast. And if you would like to be a guest on the podcast, I'd love to sit down and have a conversation with you. Go ahead and hit that contact button, iamsaltlake@gmail.com. This episode, I had an opportunity to sit down with Carlos, a.k.a. Captain Schwilly from SchwillyFamily.com. He records live music at different jam festivals, jam bands. He's traveled the United States, traveled the world, and he is located here in Salt Lake City. He's recorded a lot of live music at different bars and venues throughout Salt Lake City, as well as, like I said, the rest of the world. I had an opportunity to sit down with him after hours at Sorry Clementine. We sat down and I discussed kind of what got him into it, his story, his history, and how he got into recording live music. If you would like your band recorded by him, seriously, it sounds like he's got a really cool thing going. I'm going to put all the links at iamsaltlake.com/episode 29. Like I said, you can also find him at schwillyfamily.com. I'm going to put all the links on there, as well as his podcast and his Facebook and Twitter as well. So anyways, this is a conversation that I had with Carlos, and I'm going to jump right into that. Thank you for listening to the I Am Salt Lake podcast. I'm with Carlos, and we're talking, and we're going to talk about the Schwilly family. Let's kind of give me a little bit of an introduction about yourself and what exactly the Schwilly Family Productions is all about, how it started, how you got involved with it. I mean, that's a loaded beginning question.
That's a few hours worth of conversation right there. Starting with who I am, well, I'm a native Utahn. My name's Carlos. I grew up in Brigham City, actually.
Okay.
And when I got to graduating from high school, I left Utah, probably never to return. That's what I was thinking at the time anyway. I just wanted to get out there and see the world and get as far away from what I was familiar with as possible. And I wasn't sure I'd ever be back, but after about 15 years, I came back here, and this was about 4 years ago, and came back to the Salt Lake area. It's a whole different experience living in Salt Lake
versus Brigham City.
Brigham City, yeah. So I gained a whole new appreciation for it while I was out of town or whatever for those 15 years.
Now, what were you doing during those 15 years? Just traveling the countryside?
A lot. I went to college, first off. I went to the University of Michigan. I went there just because it was the furthest away I got, a scholarship offer that I could afford. So, and that was really a whole nother world for me. So I spent 7 years there, 5 in college. I was a competitive diver. I was actually on the team with lots of Olympians. I was there when Michael Phelps was recruited.
Wow.
Tom Dolan, Tom Mauchow, all kinds of world record holders that I was on the team with. So that was really an awesome experience. But towards the end of college, I got into the festival scene out there. And Ohio has got the most prolific festival scene I've seen anywhere in the country. And it was my first introduction to it, and it's just every weekend. I remember at one point, after a few years of being into the scene, I went from Memorial Day to Labor Day without missing a weekend of doing something, a festival or a show out of town.
Now, when you talk about festivals, you live music and dancing, just kind of more of the hippie subculture, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll say the hippie subculture. I consider everybody a hippie, and the subculture is just what kind of hippie you are. There's clean-cut hippies. Yeah. There's hippies that...
And I say that very loosely. Very loosely.
Just to get an accurate description, that's pretty much like if you've been to Uncle Uncanny's around here, desert rocks. It's that sort of thing in various scales. I started running around with these kids. This is like towards the end of college, so I'm 22, 23. Okay. And I started going to these festivals down in Columbus, Ohio, with this band called Acoustic Hookah. And I just followed this band around nonstop. And I hooked up on the internet. This was like, before chat rooms really or anything. It was back when it was just email lists. You sent out something and everybody got an email, and some people would respond and it would go into everybody's inbox. That's how you had a conversation. And we'd trade tapes and stuff like that. But I ran with these kids from Toledo that were all, 19, 20, 16. So I, even though I was only 22 or so, ended up being like kind of the elder of the group. I was the professor because I was in college, and they were all, high school dropouts or, in high school or whatever. At some point, and it's hazy how it really came together, but at some point we had dubbed ourselves the Schwilly Family. And, I don't even know who said
No, I mean, was there something behind the name? Was there a Schwilly? Or what?
That legend has yet to be written.
Okay.
I'm sure there's plenty of versions of the story. And since I've been, especially since I've turned into a business and been running around the country, I've met other people that identify with it that obviously got it from some other way. Or maybe we've had that much influence in the last 15 years because they're Schwilly kids. I mean, I'd say the beginning of it was in the northern Ohio, southern Michigan area, but there's Schwilly kids in California, Colorado, all over the place. At some point, after a few years of us all running around together, people started growing up, branching out, moving out into the world. And so now I suddenly have roots. Like I just spent a couple months in California with a, good, friend of mine that I have known since she was like 16. I've known her 15 years now.
What part of California?
Humboldt County.
Oh, Humboldt.
Arcata.
I'm very familiar with that area.
Yeah.
Very familiar.
Had a great time there. But, I have roots there. And that's really what enables me to do what I do and travel so much now, is that I don't have to go very far to find someone that I not just know, but have known for a long time that goes back to, really the beginning of, what I am now and what I'm doing now. And all these people are the inspiration behind what I do now. I've traveled a lot, and I've always kept in contact with them, and they've always followed my, adventures and antics, and a lot of them have been there with me on last-minute cross-country trips, on the, that have been with me on my adventures. At one point when the dead got back together, we all piled into a car. It was 5 hippies, a cooler, a dog, 2 guitars, in a Pontiac Sunfire.
So where do you sign up if I decide to join you? I mean, where? Just tell you we're going.
When I'm coming by, get on the bus.
Yeah.
I remember at one point, the Phil and Friends was playing in Columbus, and the guy from the band, Levon Helm, amazing. Levon Helm band was opening for him, and I had seen the Dead a bunch of times at that point. Phil and Friends a bunch at that point, but I was really excited about seeing Levon Helm. I show up and it's pouring rain. The whole Levon Helm set gets rained out. He does like a little bit of a sound check, but the crowd's not even allowed into the amphitheater at that point. And then, later the show, Phil gets most of a show, and I was so. I was pretty disappointed about that, but about 2 or 3 in the morning at the after party, there was I just had a moment of inspiration. I'm sure there was a few ingredients to my inspiration, but I was like, well, they're playing in Chicago tomorrow. Who wants to go to Chicago? And I love doing it with new kids. I love grabbing a new kid, someone that has not been out to a show, that's not been outside of their town, not been to a hippie thing. There's this kind of indoctrination sort of thing. And I grabbed this new kid. His name's Nick, and he's now a big, productive member of the Schwilly family, and grabbed him and said, all right, it's 3 in the morning. We got to get to Chicago by 6 p.m. and get tickets. Who's driving? All right, Dave. We got Dave, because he had a Jeep, and just wrangled ourselves together and ended up at that show. Those are the kinds of adventures that I live for, and that have really made me who I am, and that really connect you with another person. Like, I come out of stuff like that with feeling like these people are family. And I've had so many experiences like that with so many people at this point that everybody's Schwilly family. And that's really what it's all about, is just sharing each other's excitement and love for music. It all revolves around the music. We all either play music, dance hard to music, hula hoop, do some art.
Do you play any musical instruments yourself? Or
yes.
not?
Yeah, I play lap steel.
And what is a lap steel?
Steel guitar,
Okay,
Ben
okay.
Harper.
Oh, okay.
I do it sitting down. I'm pretty lazy. Like, I'm not much of a dancer. If you catch me at a show that I'm not at, sometimes you'll find me dancing. Other times you'll find me, like, behind the stage, kind of like sitting in the position I would be if I was on stage. Because I don't know why. That's just, I play lap steel. I found it to be a unique, awesome instrument.
And
Guitar,
how long have you been playing lap?
Just 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
Like, I tried guitar a little bit, but the left hand dexterity stuff, I just never could really get it down. But lap steel, my right hand is awesome. I've always been a picker, so all I have to do is hold a bar in my left hand, and I can do a lot with the lap steel. So actually, Tony Holiday from Salt Lake City here taught me my first licks on lap steel. This is about 3 or 4 years ago. I broke up with a girlfriend. So I suddenly had a bunch of money and free time.
Don't we all, right?
So I invested in a lap steel, started following Tony around, learning the blues around town here and meeting a lot of people. It's, when I first got back here and when I really started developing the Schwilly family image.
And that was here in
city.
Salt Lake City, yeah.
Like, I already had a whole nationwide network, and then, I made a decision to come back home, spend time with my family, give Utah another chance, and it was so welcoming and awesome that I immediately just started making my way around the scene and figuring out how I could be a part of it here.
So you record, kind of jumping a little bit into like kind of what you do as well. You record a lot of live shows, okay? I mean, from what I see, and we were talking a little bit before we even started recording here. You record a lot of live shows and then you put them online for people to listen to. And with being back in Salt Lake, you've been recording a lot of live shows here in Salt Lake. What got you into live recording?
Well, as I got into the hippie stuff, I got into the tape trading. Really, I'm a collector. Like, I feel like I'm developing the best collection of contemporary American music there is to be had.
Yeah.
And so, I started trading hookah shows, then I started trading dead shows, and then just everything that's available. I got real into archive.org. That's a website that's really inspired me.
And what is that website?
Archive.org.
I'm not familiar with it, no.
I recommend checking it out. It's an archive of any electronic data. It's a big free archive that's just trying to archive anything that's possible, movies, books, all kinds of stuff. And all the live bands, all the bands that are taper friendly, will have an entry on archive.org. They'll just give them permission, and then tapers, because there's legions of tapers, especially in the jam band scene, that follow, especially a particular band and just tape that band all the time. So there's bands that have, just like the Dead, have hundreds of shows on tape. And archive.org is a great place that just stores them all for free, as long as they have the band's permission. And that's where I used to go to get a lot of my music. That's where I got turned onto a lot of stuff. And it's a lot of the stuff that I'm doing now is what I'll tell them. All right, here you have a show. You can get yourself on archive.org. That's a worldwide audience of people that just browse through there. I know I did. And so
I'll have to check that out.
Definitely recommend checking out archive.org. So I'm doing kind of a similar thing. I approached them about trying to combine that and see if they wanted to put up a section based on what I was doing or anything. It didn't really work out because they're more simplistic. It's just a straight archive. They have to have the permission from each band. I'm recording so many different bands that I don't have time to upload it myself and get them to send permission and everything. So I just host it myself on my own website. So that
is your website, which I'll list all that on the IamSaltLake.com website.
But Schwillyfamily.com.
Schwillyfamily.com.
That's SCHWILLY family.com.
Excellent.
So yeah, you will find an archive there. It's kind of in blog format. I write a little write-up of whatever, a paragraph or two about the show, and then have all the songs tracked out. And a lot of them now that I'm doing the podcast, the ones that have podcast episodes attached, there'll be a link there, and you can go right to iTunes and take it all with you. I've recorded about 9 solid days worth of music once I have it all edited down. About 2,500 songs or so that I've gotten.
9 solid days, all of your episodes?
No, just the music I've recorded.
Or just in music in general?
Yeah.
So, recently I know you recorded Christian Coleman and the Blues End Band, which actually was on a previous interview I had with him. You'll go record a show such as, I know you got some of his music and whatnot. And then do you just upload it then, or do you kind of have a schedule, or what?
Well, I just kind of do it as I get to it.
Yeah.
I like to try to space out the, podcasts, so it's like 2 a week, at least every few days. So that way it's not like, all right, I just spent 3 days recording, put it all up on one day and then.
And it overwhelms
and then nothing
people.
for a week.
Yeah.
So I try to space it out. For the most part, I just kind of do it as I go. What I'll do is I'll listen to it, I'll mix it, give it a rough mix as best I can. I'll chop up the tracks and load that up to the web page as fast as I can, and then I spend a little more time. It takes a little more time to put all the podcast together and upload it. So I'll just do that a few days later.
Like if a band wants you to record them live too, that's kind of what you do. A band could hire you to record them.
I'm totally for hire. My hobby and my job are pretty much the same thing. Of course, I'll go into it a little more when we're actually producing something that you want to sell. And a lot of what I do with the reason why I do the podcast is it's free samples of my work.
Yeah.
Hey, here's basically what I can do for you, and here's my audience that I get to expose you to. If you want to hire me for something more professional, I'm available.
But is that here just like in Salt Lake, or somebody? I mean, if somebody out of state's like, "Hey, I want you to record," will you just run down there and record them? Then
I'm on location recording services anywhere you want me to be. I'll go to Europe with you if you want me to. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But a big part of it is a lot of bands don't really have the money to make recordings.
Yeah.
And so what I do, it's kind of unique, is I'm working on pairing up bands with sponsors to pay for the production of their albums. And I'm working on, I'm really inspired by Austin City Limits. They have a series of concerts there. That's like the series of albums I used to just collect because it's awesome live music. I prefer live music. You can go into the studio and spend as much time as you want, and I can do all that stuff too. But it's not organic to me. It comes out more often than not stale and robotic. Even though there's some really awesome stuff, like Beatles stuff, it's not really designed to be played live. I just love live music, and I think it's a great way to sell your show is to have live music. It's a great way to sell your venue is to show what a great live music venue you are. Like I'm actually working with a venue in Washington on setting up a series of live recordings from that venue. So basically, they'll have the it'll all be live from Louis G's. It'll every CD that's produced will be an advertisement for their venue, and they can and so the bands, they'll be sending customer base back and forth. You know what I mean? And also
back here to Utah, back here to Salt Lake,
to the venue.
To the venue, okay.
Wherever I'm at, like I'm working on finding a venue here that I want to do that with. There's actually a few that I want to do it with. So
here in Salt Lake City?
Yeah. So what I'd like to do is set up a series of live albums from that venue. It'll increase the legitimacy of the venue as a live venue. B, it helps them have a way to pay the bands in a way that's even more valuable than cash. It gives them additional revenue.
Are venues pretty receptive to the idea usually, or?
Some are, some aren't. It's kind of a new idea. Some are real excited about it. Like I said, there's one in Washington I'm working with that he actually gave me the idea. Guy has a vending machine at his venue, like a big box vending machine that he sells CDs out of the bands that play there. And I kind of got the idea of, well, let's make them, let's put in some live CDs that are. And another thing, actually, I've been working with I've been talking to a few retail shops that are like, all right, well, like Christian Coleman kind of said it really, really well. Like his the Blues End Band, that's the house band for the Hive.
Yeah.
All right, say this shop has a house band. What's an awesome band that really represents Sorry Clementine, that the demographic that she's looking for listens to?
Well, I couldn't tell you
that. I'm not really looking for an answer. I know how to do that kind of research. Like I can help with all that.
Yeah.
But say we pick one and then she sponsors their album. They do their photo shoot in her clothes in front of her shop. So everywhere around town that they play a show, they have their CD for sale. That's all advertising for this shop. And it's available for sale at their show or here at Clementine's,
Yeah.
Like, so they're supporting each other as businesses by sending traffic back and forth.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So I haven't really said it out loud a lot. That's why it took me a while to articulate it.
Yeah.
But that's really what I'm working towards is working on ways for community businesses and community musicians, because a band is a small business too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you've been interviewing them. It's the same. It's the same concept. It's a small group of people trying to make a living. And one of the problems with making music nowadays is that it's not treated it's treated as a hobby. People will be like, you want us to have your band play here, why don't you come set up, play for free on a Tuesday afternoon, and we'll see if we feel like having you in when there's people. You don't go to a restaurateur and saying, all right, hey, why don't you come over on Wednesday, cook me some dinner, and we'll see if I want to recommend you to some people. You just don't, it doesn't.
Never really thought of it that way,
Yeah.
But there's a lot of truth behind that,
Yeah. And so, that's just the way people think about the music business. There's those few super rock stars that make the billions of dollars, and then there's everyone else who's just a hobbyist. But really, there's enough need for music in the world that there should be people playing music full time, all the time, not having to worry about other ways to pay their bills. So the main kind of philosophy behind what I'm trying to do with Schwilly Family as a company is to give musicians the opportunity to make a living at being musicians. So although whatever I'm exactly or specifically doing evolves, it's been evolving. I've only been working full-time at it for this year, and the concepts of what I've been doing have kind of evolving, and I've been figuring out what I'm doing. What I'm doing is trying to change the way the music industry works so that people can make a living at it.
What do you think the biggest problem with the music industry is in general? Or is that kind of a loaded question, too?
No, because I've thought about it. I think there's enough money in the music industry for all the musicians to make their due. It's going to producers, and it's going to lawyers, and it's going to, corporate people. Like a couple stories. Well, for example, copywriting, publishing. It used to be all about songwriting, and publishing rights. The way technology is at this point, there's no way to really enforce that. That is an archaic way of trying to do business. And all you're doing is shoveling money towards lawyers for an impossible job. Why not just stop paying them and stop grasping at those straws and shift the way the industry works? It's not in publishing anymore. It's just simply not feasible. So if we do, so if we eliminate the lawyers, keep that money in the industry, that's something we could redirect towards musicians. The way technology is, again, nowadays, there's no reason with the technology and information that's available that any band shouldn't consider themselves a small business, run themselves as such, be self-managed, self-produced. We don't need some guy that's going to keep 90% of the money deciding who's going to be big and who's going to not. I met a really awesome guy out in Tennessee. He was in a band that sounded a lot like the Black Crowes, and he had been signed by a label. He was actually just working as a sound guy. Oh, actually, no, it was in Portland. He was working at the world famous Cannabis Cafe. Whole nother story we can get into later.
Excellent.
But he was in a band. He was telling me about how he was in this band. It sounded a lot like the Black Crowes, and right around the time that they hit, and the Black Crowes came out with their first hit, the next month, their label comes to them saying, all right, well, this slot has been filled. We have no more need for the sound you make because now the Black Crowes are big.
Wow.
Why should that happen? Because someone sounds so much like you, they should be the one that's picked because they had the first hit and go on to superstardom and have all the money that they want while this other guy has to go, work the sound on an internet radio station, which, I'm sure is somewhat fulfilling, but he's pretty disappointed about that.
Yeah.
There's no reason that should be, there's enough need for that music to be played live in front of people all over the country that one band can't possibly fill that need. It's producers and corporate entities that decide that there's only that much piece of the pie for that sound.
Wow.
So if we get rid of them, there's another huge chunk of money that's already in the industry, but now we can just find a way to shuffle it towards the people that need to be making it.
What do you think of like online things like Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that for bands? You're pretty big. Do you think that's a good way for bands to get their name out? Or?
Yeah. I don't know. To tell you the truth, it's been kind of an awkward battle for me on getting used to that and trying to use that as a medium. Because you get to a point where I almost feel like I get delirious with staring at that screen sometimes, kind of waiting for that, is someone going to like it? Just waiting to see if someone reacts or whatever. So I know there's a place for it. And it's important, and you have to have your presence there, but you have to do it strategically. And you have to not spend too much time on it when you could be spending time practicing your licks or doing other things. It's definitely
or interacting with real people.
Interacting with real people is how
Yeah.
you make connections.
Yeah.
As many people as I talk to about what I'm doing online, looking one person in the eye at a show and actually talking about to them, even with the bands. I'll talk to them a lot online, but unless I talk to them at the show, there's no follow-up, and the relationship kind of dies there.
What do you think of the Salt Lake City music scene? I mean, I
love it.
I mean, any favorite bands or any favorite?
Yeah, it's really eclectic here. I love it. I think it's sad that there's a huge chunk of the population that is, automatically eliminated from going to see shows because they won't go into a bar.
We actually talked. Yeah, me and Christian were talking about that too.
But yeah, it's a bummer. But I think the key to helping with that is developing all ages venues. Yeah. Just like you were talking with the Shred Shed guy. If you open up those that passion for the music at an age, at an earlier age, then they're not gonna go. They'll see, people have a tough time crossing the barrier of going to a bar to see a show because first they're going to a bar. So, but if they've already broken that barrier and they're going to see the show when they're 16, 17, 18, when they're 21, even if their religion prohibits them from drinking, they're going to the show first. Yeah. Mentally, it just rewires the way your brain would think towards that. So I'm not sure. I think I just trailed off.
No. We were just talking about the Salt Lake City music scene in general. I mean, just any bands or what you think of it. I mean, there's obviously then in the summertime you got your festivals like you were mentioning the Red Rock Festival. I've actually never been to that festival.
Desert Rocks.
Desert Rock.
I didn't go this past year. The last year I went, I don't. It's tough in the desert. It's a great concept, but it's too much. But I was there for a week.
You ever hit up Burning Man or any of that stuff?
No, I haven't been to Burning Man. I'm sure I might make it one time in my life. I definitely know lots of kids that like to go to that.
Yeah.
But honestly, that weekend that I spent in the desert 2 years ago was enough desert festivaling for me for a while.
Just the heat and the dehydration.
Yeah, the heat, the dehydration, and it's just overwhelming. They have so many bands at Desert Rocks that you can't even possibly try to see them all. I mean, the time I was there, they added another stage, on the first day of the festival. They're like, all right, let's just have another stage, Yeah. Just too much. But Uncle Uncanny's, I love that. That's I think the epitome of a good community festival. And that has the best acts from Salt Lake. I love anything Rick Gerber does. I know he's up from Ogden, but I just recorded the Poor Horse last night. Great kids there. Tony Holiday is one of my favorites. Candy's River House. Some good rock and roll. Sofa Slice, nice if you like the psychedelic stuff. Holy Water Buffalo, and they're from Heber, but
I've heard of. Actually, I haven't had a chance to listen to Holy Water Buffalo yet. I've heard a lot about them from some other bands that they're worth checking out.
There's some Schwilly kids. They've actually got. I made these keychains that were keychain bottle opener flashlights and printed Schwilly Family. Kind of when I first got here and passed them around, and it's cool to see some of the people. I don't even have mine anymore, but it's cool to see some of the bands and some of the cool musicians around still. Have that attached to their gear.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. So if I went up to them and I said, Schwilly Family, they would know what I was talking about.
You can actually throw that name around a lot of places.
And people would know.
Yeah.
Huh? Wow. So if you could record any band, let's say past, present, future, well, not future, we're not there yet, but any band, what would be your dream band to record?
My dream band to record, honestly, is one I have not heard before or heard of.
So they don't exist.
Exactly. No, they exist. I just haven't seen them or heard them yet. If there's already a recording out there, then I don't worry about it too much. They don't need me. They've already been recorded.
Let's find out a little bit about Carlos here now. I mean, tell me something about yourself that people listening probably wouldn't expect.
I was, I was a cheerleader at Box Elder High School.
No kidding, huh?
Yep.
I mean, what made you want to be a cheerleader?
I don't know. I've just always wanted to do the stuff that I wasn't supposed to do. And there was a real strong anti-male cheerleading movement there.
Yeah.
So I kind of made a big stink about it, grabbed a couple other guys, and ended up having a meeting at the principal's office, and they had to let us on the team.
And Box Elder, again, is in Brigham City.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was just the first year. Cheerleaders could only be cheerleaders junior and senior year there, or that's the way it was. So 4 of us, we kind of forced our way onto the team the first year, and they didn't want to have anything to do with it. But in the meantime, I came up to this cheerleading gym, Cheers, that's still operational actually in Cottonwood, and did these all-star classes, and we and it was like college level, the Ute cheerleaders taught the classes, and we went to a competition. Actually, we won the national championship, that one they do at Disneyland, oddly. And so I learned some skills there. And the second year, by the second year, all the first year cheerleaders, they were way excited to work with guys because they could see what we had been doing all year. You know, the stunt level goes up, the acrobatic level goes up, and so the resistance died the second year. All of a sudden, you know, we were like superstars of the school. So that was kind of a cool experience because it was really something that I went into with everyone disparaging me and kind of came out on top of.
Quite. I mean, how many years ago was that? I mean, that was probably...
96 I graduated.
Wow, so that was quite a few years
Yeah,
ago. And so, I mean,
96.
even back then, I mean, there's been quite a few years of progression in this area
Yeah.
for male cheerleaders.
Yeah. I've seen them kind of. What I've noticed the cycle is they kind of have them for a couple years and then don't. There'll be like a movement of some crazy guys like me that push it, and then it'll last a couple years. Like they did. They stopped after I left.
Yeah.
You know, no one was interested or whatever.
Do you have a favorite movie?
Favorite movie?
Or do you get much time to watch movies?
Not recently, but I would say the two movies that I've watched most obsessively, because there's been a couple that I've watched over and over and over and over until I moved on with some other part of my life, are, well, SLC Punk. I watched that so many times, then I watched it with the commentary, like I had all that memorized.
Really?
Yeah, I love that movie.
I
really didn't get into it until after I left home, and then it kind of brought some nostalgia.
Interesting,
So, yeah,
interesting.
That's a favorite one.
Are you much of a reader at all? Do you read many
Love
books?
to read.
What are some of your favorite books? Or authors or recommendations?
Yeah, favorite authors, Ron Paul. Read anything Ron Paul writes because it's the truth. As far as good readings, what's his name? On Into Thin Air, Into the Wild, Under the Banner of Heaven. Under the Banner of Heaven is a great book I recommend to everyone. The same author wrote all three books I just mentioned, but I can't think of them. I want to say Jack Kerouac, but that's totally wrong.
I mean, are you a Jack Kerouac fan? Maybe. I know he's quite trendy in certain crowds.
I started On the Road once when I was in high school and didn't make it very far. As far as the beats, I've started a few of those books and not made it very far. But I like to read biographies. Okay. I love to read about people. I've read like all 4 Jerry Garcia biographies.
Nice.
Presidential biographies. I love biographies. I love history. I just read an awesome book about an American that went to college in Japan and ended up writing as the crime reporter for their biggest newspaper there, which is a completely ridiculous scenario that never could possibly happen but did. I like to read stuff about travel and adventure. I'm a big traveling's my thing. I grew up traveling. My mom was an ESL teacher. She's still around. She just retired. She went to Mexico. She took me. We lived in Korea for a year. She took me to Japan a few times. I went out to Europe in high school. Been to Australia with my mom, and so I grew up traveling internationally, and just have always had the bug to travel. And that's really a lot of why I want to travel now and see America.
Where's somewhere you haven't been that you want to go to? I mean,
haven't been that I want to go to. I'd like to go to Scandinavia.
Never been there yet, huh?
Yeah, I haven't been there. Not real big on the cold, but I have a friend, the guy that did my that does the website. He's Swedish, and so I told him I'd visit him sometime soon.
So you've been to all 50 states in the United States, and Canada, Mexico?
I don't know about all 50 states. I'm kind of starting over with my counting the states by states I record in now. So I'm at 11.
Nice.
So I definitely want to record bands in 39 more states.
What is one food you wouldn't eat?
Fish. Fish of pretty much any type of sort.
Any reason behind that? I mean,
are
you a meat eater in general?
Well, I love meat. I don't like fish. I don't know why. I just always grosses me out. I try it every now and again, but it still makes me gag. I used to tell people I was allergic. Maybe I am. It makes me gag. I don't know. I don't like fish at all. That was tough when I was living in Korea.
Wow, I could imagine. If you had $1 million, what's the first thing you would spend it on?
Tour bus.
A tour bus.
Just like Willie Nelson's.
Just like Willie Nelson's. I love it. Have you ever met Willie Nelson?
Yes.
Really?
Yep, totally. I met him at Hookahville, 2001.
I think my ultimate dream would be to hang out with Willie and smoke with him.
I got to burn a doobie with Willie.
Oh man, now you're my I'm jealous of you.
Yeah. It was,
how long ago was that?
2001.
Oh, yeah, I think
Yeah.
you said that. Wow, that now I'm just sitting here fantasizing and visualizing. What motivates you as a person? I mean, where do you? I mean, you're definitely a driven person. Where do you get motivation from?
I was kind of thinking about that at the shows. Like when I'm recording, I'll be kind of focused on what I'm doing and looking at the band, make sure everything sounds right. But when people get up there and start dancing, especially when they do, when they look silly and really get into it and lose themselves, like that's when I find myself perking up. I like to see people be happy and silly and interact with each other. What motivates me is sharing the love.
I love it. So what's the motto or advice that you live by? I mean, besides that, I guess is there any kind of motto you live by, or?
Be grateful every day.
I love it.
Every day I wake up and first thing I do is drink a glass of water and think of something that I'm grateful for. Really, that takes about a split second because, especially when it's always on your mind, when you have something to be grateful for. I mean, what else? That's just the most soothing feeling there is.
I love it. Well, anything else? I mean, anything else you want to add? I mean, anything else so people can get in touch with you? I mean, you're online, schwillyfamily.com.
Yep. Go to schwillyfamily.com. You'll find all kinds of great resources there if you like to travel. There's some maps of the country that will show you where the venues are that I've recorded at, show you where local bands are that I've met, so you can always find something cool in whatever neighborhood you're going to. I always got my schedule up of whatever shows I'll be at. I want to get something more aggregated, but you can find plenty of music there. Check it out on iTunes. Schwilly Family Road Trip on iTunes.
And you're on Twitter too?
Yeah, Twitter at Captain Schwilly. Email me at captainschwilly@gmail.com. And I want to hear from anyone that likes music about anything, especially if you got a good local band that you're excited about in anywhere. And
if you're a band, obviously get in touch with you.
Yeah,
because
get in touch with
you
me.
record some live
music.
music.
Yeah, I will totally work out a professional recorded album for you and help you figure out how to pay for it and help you get in a little bit better touch with your own community at the same time. So I'm here to help you.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing your story a little bit, Carlos. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely been interesting. And I think I want to hop in the bus and travel.
Yeah.
It's always been a dream of mine. I mean, I'm not going to lie. There's always been that side of me that just wants to throw it all in and just, quit that corporate life and travel, man, and just
yeah, I'm certainly glad I did it, but we always be happy to take you out on a quick, little jaunt that works within your vacation schedule as well. So
all righty, well, thank you very much. All right. Thank you very much, Carlos, for taking a few minutes out of your day and sitting down with me and sharing your story as well as the Schwilly family story. You could check him out in everything he's doing at schwillyfamily.com, his podcast, his recordings, his story, schwillyfamily.com. I'm also going to put that up at the website, iamsaltlake.com/episode 29. You can listen to all the previous episodes of the podcast online as well as download them directly from the website. We do have a voicemail, 385-202-5926. Leave us a message. Tell us a story. Tell us an event you got coming up, something you want to share on the podcast. We'd love to get the word out there. iamsaltlake@gmail.com is the email. You can click on the link for iTunes and subscribe to us as well as leave us a review. Takes just a second, and we'd love to get some feedback. That way it gets us in front of more people. So until next time, we'll be back on Sunday with a new individual, a new professional, a new musician, just somebody who's doing something really awesome here in Salt Lake. Thank you very much for your continual support, and we'll see you on Sunday. Thanks a lot, Salt Lake City.